You're listening to Surely a Mystery, straight from Long Beach Island, New Jersey. We're here to share with you all the spooky, scary, and mind-bending enigmas that make up the Jersey Shore. I'm your living host, Anna, here with some mystery, history, and a few tips to proper ghost hunting. So why don't we get started? For this episode, I wanted to tackle the growing number of sinkholes in New Jersey. It makes sense because it's almost like hell or the underworld is reaching up and grabbing cars and people. Why else? Well, according to the last confirmed reports, there are at least 588 abandoned mines that we know about. There are still many more on private property. That may seem like a lot, but in Nevada, there are more than 200,000 abandoned mines. So New Jersey is just a drop in the bucket. The problem is that many of our abandoned mines and natural caves are actually found under places like Interstate 80 or I-287. Big deal. What do these things have to do with mysteries and paranormal? Some of my listeners may culturally understand. Others may not really have thought about it. So let's give some background. Since there are many from Mesoamerican cultures in North Jersey, caves are revered as sacred spaces. Many generations see them as gateways to the underworld, Mitlakan. There are also sources of life or the primordial places of origin. The gods dwell there, or even their ancestors. Many Native American tribes share these beliefs, and many North American archaeologists are finding that deep in caves and caverns, there are the stored remains or offerings. But what about these European beliefs about the caves? Funny, but they see it in the same way. Caves are mysterious, dark places where the ancients live or supernatural creatures. Places oftentimes to be left alone. Unfortunately, they are also places of great wealth. Many areas around New Jersey are found to have 85% iron or magnetic ore. Magnetite was once the prominent deposit in the Wharton area. According to the historic records, the first mines in New Jersey were dug sometime in the 1600s. So miners from Europe and South America brought many of their superstitions to these new caves. Second-hand tools were the norm. There is the belief that if a person uses them in a mine, you had to survive, and you would survive if your tools were used. Okay, then how do you get extra tools, which were never used in the first place? Oh, and women were totally taboo. No women in the mines. I believe that comes from the whole issue of blood and birth. And the most significant of these beliefs, what the miners thought, were that the areas in the mines were homes for supernatural creatures. Tommyknockers were mythical creatures. They look like goblins or fairies, so they could either be ugly or beautiful, and were believed to live underground. If there was danger, they would warn the miners with knocking noises. Even popular culture has heard of them through books by such people as Stephen King. More scientific thought is that the noises were the moans and groans of the rocks and the ground. It wasn't supernatural at all. It was more like the earth talking to the miners. Some call it settling. If you watch Lord of the Rings, Rings of Power, the character Disa sings to the mountain and can tell where to mine and how to mine. She might be considered a Tommyknocker if she weren't a female. Those from Bolivia have El Tío. You must bring him alcohol and cigarettes. I believe that in Eastern European countries they have similar traditions of leaving gifts or offerings for the spirits of the mountain. You basically are distracting them from the bad juju or even bribing the mountain to give you some of its riches. Some miners, Well, they believe that there are goblins or mine fairies. These creatures would lead miners away from the rest of their crew or even move their tools around in the mine. So you always kept your tools with you and you didn't really want to put them down. These creatures were hiding the wealth of the mountain, and some say protecting the supernatural things which might live inside the earth. Miners have so many superstitions that honestly, that could be a whole other show. Many also incorporate religion into their mining superstitions, such as you can't work on Good Friday. Nonetheless, these mines got built or dug and the riches were drained. Over time, mining was no longer part of the major industry for New Jersey. Some owners simply just stopped mining and left the mine abandoned. Others were turned over to the Bureau of Land Management. The problem is, although we roughly know where they are, people don't know how stable the mines actually are. Over time, the timbers rot, especially with our crazy and random weather. New buildings would steer underground water in patterns to new paths, maybe even an abandoned mine under an interstate. With the new Doge cuts in the government, I think that this bureau will indeed have cuts because of how unimportant it seems to track underground holes and abandoned mines. Haven't they heard of Centralia, Pennsylvania? A town that literally had to be abandoned because of an underground mine fire that still burns to this day. That is probably one of the worst case scenarios for mines in New Jersey. The whole of North Jersey might become a wasteland. However, there are other caves in New Jersey. Now that you have the background, what about the ghosts? What about those scary things that go bump underground where it's always night? That's what this episode is really about. How about a more recent ghost story? Crooked Swamp Cave is the longest limestone cave in New Jersey, and as this changing air currents in it, so it's also called the breathing cave. But it's really a three-cave system. In 1982, a scoutmaster, who also happened to be a police officer, went into the cave looking for some supposedly lost Boy Scouts. He was 48 at the time and had experience with the cave system, but he still went missing, and later he was found dead. According to people, his ghost might still haunt the area. Some say that they see a man in hiking gear near the mouth of the cave, often just about to enter into it. And then he does, and then he's never seen exiting the cave. Some hear the faint echoes of a male voice, oftentimes screaming for help. It could be Donald Wiltner, but maybe he doesn't know he's dead. Oftentimes, he is so disoriented in the cave, he probably died of hypothermia or dehydration, which will often cause hallucinations. So his soul might still be in the stage of denial because it doesn't realize what really is real. Crooked Swamp is a natural cave and cavern system. However, one of the best known caves in New Jersey is actually created by humans. Stevens family created the cave around 1832, really just for fun. Sybil's Cave. It wasn't for any real purpose other than they could say that they did it. However, they did also create a river walk nearby for locals and visitors. However, the cavern took a turn for the worst when a beautiful cigar girl, Mary Cecilia Rogers, who had been beaten and sexually assaulted, was found floating near the entrance of the cave in the Hudson River, nearly 3 days after she went missing. Well, she wasn't actually killed in the cave. At least that's what police believe. Her clothing and other personal items were found weeks later in a wooded area near to the Weehawken River, just north of Hoboken. So the cave was really just cursed by proximity to where she was found, and not because she died in the cave. Who killed her? It's never been solved. Even Edgar Allan Poe printed a story in 1842, loosely based on her tale, entitled The Mystery of Marie Roget. Sure, she was a prime candidate at the time for being murdered. I never want to blame the victim, but she did live life on the periphery. She ran a boarding house with her mother in New York City Hall and was even a tobacco sales girl in a shop off of Broadway. The New York City writers and reporters were super interested in what happened to Mary because they frequented the tobacco shops on Broadway, even hers. The upside was that Hoboken got lots of looky-loos and lots of tourists. Like today, everyone wanted to either see the scene of the crime, like the Lizzie Borden house, or try and solve the crime themselves. Her former boyfriends were all brought in for questioning. Some were even charged and then later exonerated. Even her current boyfriend, Donald Payne, was a suspect. He was harassed by many who believed that he'd killed her. Poor Donald committed suicide by poisoning. That's a rarity for men who prefer hanging and shooting. When he died, there was even more speculation that he was the killer. But no, he wasn't. Many believe that it could have even been a botched abortion. Laws forbidding it were all over the books in New Jersey and New York at the time. Did she have one and die as a result? There were signs that indicated to the Hoboken coroner that it could have been the case, but he never wrote it down on paper. It's just a speculation. In the 1880s, the cave was closed down by health inspectors due to water quality. Fred Ellickson did make some sliding door thing so he could serve food and drinks like many did in the caves before, using them as sort of like pre-industrial refrigerators. Eventually, Stevens Institute of Technology, yes, the same family, bought the property back. The property is now open periodically to the public. However, most of the original structures have decayed. In 2007, the city of Hoboken wanted to preserve the cave, so they created this new stone arch and fencing, and 2 years later it was excavated and researched by archaeological experts. Yep, the water isn't safe to drink. They weren't even sure that the spring was even safe to drink in the 1800s, when it was used as a spring of life. The whole thing is stagnant, since you can't visit it, nor even enter without special permission. According to many who hike near the cave and its entrance, strange things do happen. The sounds of a woman wailing in grief or pain. Could it be the wind? But on days when it's hot, dry, and still? Some say that you can even see a woman in period clothing, and she'll be walking in the woods near the River Rock. Some wonder if she's an actress. Let's ask her, they say, and then you look for her and she's gone. Some in Weehawken, near the woods where she died, can sometimes hear a splashing sound, like something heavy being dumped into the river. Well, was she at the caverns before her death? Did she meet the men or man there who killed her? Maybe that was the last moment of carefree life that she knew of, so that's why she's seen there. Mary figures that she'll go back there and eventually try and find her way home. Well, let's switch to a man-made mine, but for obvious purposes. The Sterling Hill Mine in Ogdensburg, New Jersey. It was the largest producer of zinc in the United States and began operating in 1897. Until about 1986, when it stopped operating. It's got 35 miles of tunnels, and over 300 miners are said to have died there. However, state records only officially tell of 77 deaths. I think that the others were those who got injured in the mine, but they were still alive, and then they died at home. That still doesn't change the fact that many ghost hunters have investigated the place. Amy Bruni and Adam Berry even took poor medium chip coffee to investigate the area. They will tell you that it certainly is haunted. Some spirits are lighthearted there, like Bicycle Pete. I know, that sounds funny, but he was a former miner who, after the mine closed, would simply ride his bike around town. Everyone knew who he was. One night, he rode off and never returned home. Eventually, they found his bike, but never him. Some say he was called into the mine or called home to the mine and got lost. There are the usual ghostly groans and moans. Some say that a swift breeze will go by them, like someone walking swiftly by them. There are walking ghost tours where they break off and explore. Sometimes there are weird knocking noises, like when people are trapped and they want to let you know where they are so you can go find them. Others are more like whispers in your ear, like that creepy person standing right next to you who's breathing in your ear and wants to get your attention. Ghost lights are seen sometimes when the lanterns are completely off. It could be the spirits of the dead miners or supernatural creatures that are called will-o'-the-wisps. Footsteps can often be heard when no one's walking. Are these just residual hauntings or ghosts trying to bridge into the conversation with the living? I suggest you check it out, but make sure that you definitely aren't claustrophobic. Another well-known cave system is in the Hibernia district. It produced great amounts of iron and built a very religious and respected community. Around 1722, there was the Hibernia furnace, but during the Revolutionary War, Samuel Ford supplied shot and ordnance for the Continentals. After World War II, the Hibernia mines were abandoned, and most of the village was as well. There are apparitions seen near the church and a few walking the streets, but none specifically with the mine. For another active mine, one has to go to the Schuler Copper Mine. It's in Bergen County, and it began operations around 1715. In 1755, the first steam engine was actually put together there, and the mine was in operation steadily between 1715 and 1748. But suddenly, there was a great amount of flooding, which is when above-ground operations kind of focused on building steam engines. Schuler bought the steam engine to pump out the water. And eventually, the Victorious Shaft, which reached a depth of 347 feet, was finished. However, in 1773, there was a fire and it halted the use of the mine until well after the Revolutionary War. After that, it was in use for copper production. The ghost tales of this cave are few and far between. Men standing near the side of roads in overalls, floating lights between the trees, but it could simply be gases from old mine tunnels, or it could be spirit lights. The prettiest cavern to visit by far is Sterling Hill Mine and its fluorescent rocks. It's a historic zinc mine in Ogdensburg. It's been operating since 1739. It was the oldest operating mine in New Jersey. It has been on the Historic Register of Places since 1991, and in 1999 it officially became a museum. Many talk about the eerie glow of the place, but that's kind of for obvious reasons. So the orbs seen there might actually be from the natural surroundings and not at all from ghost lights. For ghost lights, you'll probably have to go to the Ringwood Mines. Or, well, actually, near it, since the Ford Motor Company dumped paint sludge and other industrial waste nearly 50 years ago. However, that doesn't change the range of ghostly apparitions. You see, Robert Erskine was a general surveyor for George Washington. Yes, that George Washington. He ran the mines there during the Revolutionary War. And he was buried in a crypt near his house, Ringwood Manor, which had the stone slab on it, but it partially exposed the coffin. So many said it was on purpose. So he would get out sit on his grave, and then walk between it and the manor. Finally, in the early 1900s, a woman named Sarah Hewitt, who owned the house, put an end to his travels by closing up the home. Well, I kind of wonder, if we open it up, would Robert come out and travel and walk again? The mine itself has eerie ghost tales and knocking at irregular intervals. Miners knew that a collapse or problems would happen soon enough, and they were always right, which is why this particular mine didn't have a lot of deaths associated with it. The openings are still there, and kids often want to dare going near it or in it. Many kids would do the whole dare thing, or would you rather, and then make the people do the thing that they said they would rather do. One night, according to someone, they dared this kid to go to the opening. He got to the edge, and it looked literally like someone pushed him towards the hole. They weren't far behind, so they ran to prevent him from falling completely in. But they said it was like he was being pulled down. They got him out, and he simply ran home and never talked to any of them again. The guy said he doesn't blame him. If my kids ever go near there, I'll kill them. Our last story comes from 1906, and it may be the creepiest. James J. Howard and Margaret Lewis, they are the ghost children of Cave Grave in Newton. It's nestled along Route 621. There's a peaceful graveyard. Everything is beautiful, but then there is this marker literally attached to a rock at the sealed off entrance of the cave. Legend is that Margaret went into the cave. She got lost. And her two brothers followed her steps into the cave because they thought they'd be brave and save her. None of them were ever found. No bodies. There were no obvious signs of foul play. So the locals basically created this cave sealed grave marker to prevent any other children from going missing. People will tell tales of hearing the sounds of footsteps, twigs breaking near that gravestone. Some even say that they see a young girl gasping for air and grabbing her neck. Others will hear a young girl scream. Some will see two boys running in the direction of the grave marker. The question is whether the rest of the graveyard was put there to keep the kids company, or was the graveyard there before? You see, usually people don't put graveyards near cave entrances. The reason is that they believe that supernatural creatures could come out and basically steal your loved ones' bodies. So, are these kids' spirits now trapped in the cave, wondering why they were locked into the cave? How hard did people really look for them? You know, kids are small and could creep into small cracks in the cave's interior, kind of like playing hide and seek, thinking, oh my God, they're going to kill us. And then try to get out, and they'd already sealed them in. Definitely, visiting this graveyard is a must, because you've got to see this creepy plaque. Mines and underground caverns are all over New Jersey. Another episode could be done for sure. Even our lovely Jenny Jump State Park has caverns. There's Fairy Cave with Lenape artifacts and giant beaver remains. The Blairstown Quadrangle Caves with Fairy Hole, Fairy Low, and Fairy Tube. The problem is that many in North Jersey cross major roadways, and someday these ghosts might get new friends if a sinkhole develops in rush hour or in more than just the American Legion's backyard. We are told to hold them sacred in the past, but we didn't care about these man-made caverns and mines. It looks like the land is suddenly reminding us of our duties. On the next Surely a Mystery, I think that I might tackle abandoned children. And yes, that might include the most notorious abandoned resident of New Jersey, the Jersey Devil, the 13th child. But for now, watch where you walk, keep an eye out for holes in the road, and know that this is your living host, Anna, from the beautiful Jersey Shore. Until the next time on Surely a Mystery.